Hi, this is Eric Durek, and welcome to this edition of Med Health Fit, the TV show that integrates wellness and healthcare. And tonight we're going to be talking about nutrition with local nutritionist Chis Latham. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks
All right,
for
so,
having me.
well, I appreciate it. I'm glad you could make it. And you've been practicing in Santa Barbara about, what, 15 years?
Yes.
And you have an interesting story, which I think is going to be the next question, but first and foremost, how did you get started in the whole aspect of nutrition therapy, nutrition for sports, all that kind of stuff?
Well, I've always been interested in nutrition. Ever since I was little, I played a lot of sports growing up. And I started to get more into triathlons as I got older. So as I was training for a half Ironman triathlon, I started to feel off and thought something was wrong. So I went to a local doctor here in town, and she said, your hormones are off, so let's give you some bioidentical hormones. And from training so much, your estrogen and female hormones get depleted, all of those sex hormones. And then also the thyroid hormone was off. And so she gave me some bioidenticals, and I still didn't feel as well, so I started to dig more into nutrition. I wound up getting my master's in clinical nutrition, and then I also became a certified nutrition specialist, which requires 1,000 didactic hours in order to get that certification as well as an exam.
Did you have to sit in with someone? Did you have to go to a practice? Or
Yes, I had to practice underneath people for 1,000. Took 1,000 hours.
1,000 hours is like, let's just say 5 months, 6 months?
Yeah, it's a long time.
Long time. 1,000.
Yes.
So many hours I can't even count. So, and so you've been a competitor for a long time, and I know that like the big thing in the world of both competitive sports and what I'll call specialized wellness centers, like precision wellness centers, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit, is the whole issue of, diet as well as your specific type of event. So an endurance athlete may have a little bit, maybe higher fat or higher something, and someone who's doing a specialty program may have something that's a neural facilitator, some sort of liquid thing that they're drinking or whatever. And I know tonight we're not really going to be talking about specific types of things. We're not going to be promoting any brands, but I would like to ask if you have any, do you recommend supplements for people? Do you
Yes.
recommend protein powders and things of that nature? So without giving a brand name, what's your, what do you sort of steer towards?
So with the population I work with, if you are not an athlete, I would recommend something. I work with a lot of digestive disorders and people with chronic diseases. So in order for them to easily digest food, hemp is a great protein. So
Thank you,
organic
because
hemp.
I've been taking that for years.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, you're doing good.
Great minds think alike. Well, the other thing too is that before we got on air, I talked a little bit about my work back in the days of Sansom Research Foundation, and that they were into the high-fat, high-protein diets because they wanted to manage blood sugars. They were all about managing blood sugars. They weren't looking at long-term health or whatever. But interestingly enough, I remember in 1996 or so, the first study on Paleolithic nutrition came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, and then it was like paleo, and everyone's eating twigs and rocks and stuff, and meat, et cetera, and now we have the keto diet. And I just remember when I was in school, oh my God, you stay away from ketoacidosis, it'll kill you. And now we have a diet that actually sort of promotes that. So tell me a little bit about maybe your thoughts on paleo diets and this whole trend now towards the keto diet, which is not really ketoacidosis. You're not putting yourself in a very high state of acidosis, but you're ruffling the edges maybe.
Yeah, so paleo and keto are huge diets right now. It's all the buzzwords, especially keto. So paleo diets, I get a lot of people on paleo diets, and one thing I notice when they're on paleo diets, when they come to me, because obviously they're not feeling well, is a lot of paleo and keto diet, specific carbohydrate diet, all of those diets have foods that are high in oxalates, as I had mentioned before the show. And so I find that if we take those oxalates out, that people do much better. So.
And before the show, you talked about the fact that for whatever reason, where they have inflammatory bowel syndrome, that they've taken medications or antibiotics that actually get rid of the enzymes that help digest it. So the goal in this digestive process is to get rid of the oxalates, pass them through the system as quickly as possible. Or we...
Yeah, because the oxalates bind magnesium and calcium in the body because that's what they do in the plant. So if you eat that and you don't have the bacteria to degrade, to get rid of the oxalates.
Break it down. Right.
Exactly, yeah. Then you're going to, they're going to collect the calcium, magnesium, and you're going to develop certain, like...
Kidney stones, maybe?
Yes, kidney stones is one. That's exactly
It's
one.
very interesting because I feel that almost everyone has an irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease. I don't know if it's Frosted Flakes. I don't know if it's 7 cups of coffee. I don't know if it's the 3 bowls of ice cream at dinner that people, you know what I mean? So whatever people are eating, the processed foods, we talked a little bit about glyphosate, which is in almost everything now, which I think it's a huge hormone disruptor. It's a huge digestion. It depletes everything.
Depletes glutathione in the body, yeah.
And so now we have these people eating now. So another question is, can you be on a paleo diet for like a training regime and then go back off it? Is it something that you can sort of cycle like a training regime?
I think some people can do that. Depends on what they... Depends on so many other things.
Maybe what they're training for.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that cycle training is better than training at a high level and not resting the whole year, and then you're burned out. That's where periodization is.
Periodization.
Periodization. And again, what I remember about paleo is that when I heard somebody talking about it, and a famous doctor, can't remember his name right now, but he said, if you cycle and you're on the paleo for a while, and then you get back into a sort of your normal nutritional thing, it's probably better for you than trying to stay on it because, as you say, over time, it has its own issues.
Yeah, because you tend to narrow your food choices and you tend to eat the same things over and over and over.
Yeah, like most people do anyway, right?
Yeah, which is why I see a lot of people. Yeah.
Pizza Fridays, hamburger. Yeah. So anyway, it's the American diet, I guess, as you know, is that we don't have a lot of variety in foods. And I have a tendency to eat the same stuff on a regular basis too, but I'm always sort of,
as long as I tell my clients to switch it up every week. If you want to have the same smoothie in the morning, have that for a week. Just add different things to your smoothie the next week.
There you go.
As long as you're getting
right
a mix of ingredients.
So we're going to move from these types of dietary regimes. You're not a big fan of like intermittent fasting or those kind of things as well?
I practice intermittent fasting.
Okay, good. So
yeah.
Because I think more people probably should be fasting based on the things that I've read. I didn't learn any of this stuff in school, by the way.
No, they don't do that.
I mean, I learned what I would consider the basics of nutrition, and I had a few nutrition courses, but they never covered high carbohydrate. Because when I was in school, it was high carbohydrate diets. All the marathon runners carbo loaded. That's what they did. And now we're seeing the exact opposite. So intermittent fasting, I think, is more a health regime, correct?
Yes. Yeah. It actually helps your body rest. So a lot of people with digestive disorders or mitochondria, you just want your body to rest and recuperate and not break down food the whole time.
Well, and my work at Sansom was the pancreas, and I think that the pancreas is completely overworked in people with their 3 Coca-Colas a day and all this kind of stuff.
If you're drinking that, yeah.
And a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And I just think that over time the pancreas just kind of exhausts itself, which is why people get pancreatitis and other types of those kinds of disorders. So I want to move the topic now from foods to supplements because I've always been a big supplement guy. I'm into super organic greens right now. I think it's something that I can drink in the morning, and I think that I'm better off for it because I've never been one to take tons of vitamins, but and you recommend them. And what do you think might be some of the best? I know maybe digestive enzymes or something like that, since you're a digestive person, which is a good thing. I say that.
So what I do with folks that come in to see me, there's a specific test that you can do to test your nutrients. You look at antioxidants, you look at gut health, you look at mitochondria, amino acids, toxins in the body, and fatty acids, and then I develop a plan based on that. So everybody's different. A lot of people are low in glycine, riboflavin, thiamine. All of these are needed for the citric acid cycle for the mitochondria to work.
Right. Do you recommend blood labs for your
I also
people?
request blood lab, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
locally through their doctor, or do you just do like an online type thing?
I could order it, or they typically bring it in through their doctor, because doctors typically order a CBC or CMP.
Right, and I was going to say blood and urine, because you can get a lot of information from that. So.
Oh, urine, yeah, I use urine tests a lot.
Good, because there's like BUN, all those kind of things you can do with urine analysis, which is something that. And I just remember, I hate to keep bringing, Lance Armstrong, when he was on TV all the time, I remember watching a show about him. He was doing intervals on a mountain. He came back down and boom, he'd get a finger stick and he'd have a lactate. He'd get a blood lactate in between his intervals. And then he would time how he would do how fast he would have to go up the hill the next time based on what his blood lactate was. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good way to do that. And I'll tell you a story off the air about a guy that was training for the Ram that we actually did finger sticks with as well, because he kept bonking. So we were using glucose technology. This was in the 80s when it first came out, and so this guy used it and he got third that year. So I think that this stuff is very important for people, and I just think that most Americans don't know enough about blood labs to know how, and I know personal trainers and a lot of dietitians may not know how important the blood labs are for everything, not just for disease state, but performance.
Oh yeah, and the ranges are so wide, so I use a more functional range, which is more narrow. And so you want to be in that narrow, healthier crowd rather than and they change the different labs change the lab ranges every once in a while. I just noticed that a lab I got from, I think it was Pacific Diagnostics, they changed the lab range, so they make it wider, so you fit, even if you're feeling unhealthy, you fit into that healthy category.
Which is not a good thing.
No, it's not. It's just we're getting sicker as a nation, so let's just extend it.
Interesting enough, because when I was starting in diabetes, the A1C was 7. Now they've lowered it to 6.5, which is, it's tougher for people to achieve, but I think that's probably a good thing.
That's good, yeah.
So, and I would say the same thing for waistlines and some of the other ones. So specific supplements, it's basically individual.
Yeah, it's individual. I would say that 2 supplements I think I put a lot of people on, none of my clients go without, are B12, and there's 4 different types of B12, so you want to make sure you're on the right one, and also magnesium.
Magnesium. But you also mentioned hemp protein, which is sort of a...
Yeah, if you want to pack an extra punch, if you're not getting enough protein.
Do you recommend like local? Because I get mine from Trader Joe's. I'm not quite sure how.
So I like organic.
Organic, okay.
Yeah, organic hemp and nothing else. So if they add in B vitamins or A, you see that's just junk. They put in folic acid and all the junky types of vitamins.
So I got to go to Lazy Acres now.
Yeah. if you want the just hemp organic,
It's Lazy Acres, because Trader Joe's actually doesn't carry the one that I used to have anymore, so I don't know why.
Or Lassen's or Whole Foods,
so
all the health food stores.
All right, so I'm going to try to make do without my glasses tonight. But one of the questions that I had here was this sort of generic thing about Dr. Michael Pollan, who I basically, I have a bromance with this guy because he is. When I saw one of his videos on, and I think it was the difference between a Twinkie and a carrot. I don't know if you ever saw this one. He goes, why does it cost more to get a carrot to market than it does a Twinkie? And he says, because the carrot, he goes, the Twinkie, you have to manufacture, you have to get these raw ingredients, you have to mix it up, you have to put it in an oven, you have to inject it with some white sugary cream, you've got to put it in a package, you've got to put it in a box, you've got to put it in a carton, you've got to put it on a truck. And he's like going through all this kind of stuff. And the carrot, you got to pull in the ground, put it in a box, take it to the market. And he goes, so why? And then he would tell these stories, in a lot of his videos about, because they subsidize them, because the government pays for all of this junk food that people eat.
They do.
And Twinkies are very, very inexpensive. And so Michael Pollan is really changing the way that we look at food, how it's grown, the soil, which we talked a little bit about before we went on air, processed versus unprocessed, sort of getting back to nature, home gardens, urban gardens, all these kind of things.
Cooking at home.
Cooking at home, which
huge.
You're quite a bit younger than I am, and we used to do that all the time. That's just, we didn't, for us, pizza night was like 3 times a year. My mother would make homemade pizzas with homemade sauce and all the ingredients were organic. We had our own farm in the back. And we just took it for granted that these things, even though we lived in the Midwest, we would can things. So you could have spaghetti sauce in the winter because you canned it.
Oh, see, yeah, that's the way it should be.
Well, and I think that we're kind of, in a way, thanks to people like Michael Pollan, moving a little bit into that direction.
I agree.
I just, you told me before you have a specialty interest and you have a specialty education process, but you still got to know about all this stuff. I mean, the soil, I mean, we talked a little bit about this. It's just so important. So
yeah,
go ahead.
That's why I think a lot of people are deficient in so many nutrients, especially the minerals, because you typically get that from the soil. Mm-hmm. But we're just so deficient in it that we need more from supplements.
Well, and I remember back in graduate school reading a 1936 report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it's one of those reports that kind of stuck with me. And they said that back then, when they were soil testing in different states, that they found that the soil was becoming depleted then, and that was around the Dust Bowl in the 30s.
Yeah.
And so if you look at now, the only place I guess that we have really rich soil is under New York City streets, but we're not going to garden there for a while. So that's why I'm saying Michael Pollan, these people are changing the way that we're looking. All these documentaries on food and all of these types of programs and Netflix shows about food, and even Anthony Bourdain, he's changed the way people sort of thought about how food is produced. And now we have all these cooking shows and all that, but at least we have them. I don't necessarily watch all these things, mm-hmm. but it's shifting a little bit from just the fast food and going to the drive-in and getting your malted milkshake and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's more awareness now.
And I hope so, because I also think that I don't know how we're at a tipping point. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I think we're at a tipping point in terms of a lot of things in this country.
I think it's heading that direction.
Politics, religion, and food. And one of the scariest things that I heard recently, about a year or so ago, is that, and it was another Netflix documentary thing about a guy who went around the country, and he said that America throws away over 30% of its food every day. And they're in the dumpster. So this guy had a documentary put together about him dumpster diving and finding food. Bananas that are supposed to be too curved, and all of these box things that they're completely good, but they have an expiration or whatever, and they just toss it every day. And I couldn't believe that this billions of dollars every week in food that goes into the dumpsters.
I know.
It was shocking. It was shocking to me. So when you talk with people, and you talk to them about good food choices, specific types of things that you give them. I mean, someone comes in. So you said that more of your people now are sort of aging, disease, etc.
Yeah.
You go to sort of, if someone came into your office, you would do a profile, and then you'd sit down with them with a piece of paper. What kind of things would you talk about? I know, depending on the condition, but in general.
Yeah. In general, I ask for a 3-day food diary.
Okay.
So typically on there, I see a lot of carbohydrates. So it depends on the type of the subset or the population. So a lot of older females that I see eat a lot of carbohydrates, not enough protein, not enough vegetables.
Okay.
Males eat a lot of carbs. And carbs are, vegetables are carbs, fruit are carbs, but they're eating like oatmeal or something refined, something that comes in a box. Or
like a Cliff Bar.
Exactly, yeah. I had a client that was eating Cliff Bars for breakfast, and they wondered why they were feeling so badly, because you're not getting all the nutrients, you're just feeding your body sugar, and they right. crash and have some coffee, and it's amazing what food does when you start feeding your body, giving it what it needs. It balances out. Your hormones balance out, everything does. Inflammation decreases. Mm-hmm.
And the typical age range of people you're seeing now?
Gosh, it varies. It's mainly, I'd say like 30 to 60 is typically what I get. I have had some below 30-year-olds come to me. Not that many, but I'd say like 30 to 60. Mainly women. A lot more men are coming now, but mainly women.
Okay. And is it just, I want to lose weight, or is it other specific types of things?
So they come in to lose weight, and then I find out there's so many other things going on. Okay, well, this is probably why you can't lose weight, because there's so much inflammation in the body.
It's so screwed up.
Let's fix the basic biochemistry,
right.
yeah. Mm-hmm. And then your body will start to balance out. It'll start to burn fat for fuel. Let's fix what you're eating. So that's basically what I focus on.
Do you recommend farmers market?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people are so stressed out now, and they're just go, 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 and they don't sit down and eat their food, they have a lot of digestive issues because they're not chewing till it's liquid. And people are just stressed out nowadays, and that's huge. That puts a toll on the body. It's not just what you eat, it's also the environmental factors, as we talked about before.
Well, and like I say, now I've always been sort of a fast eater. So I was like this when I was a kid, and of course my wife is like, slow down, slow down. I say, well, I'm just bigger than you. I can eat things faster. But I do like to eat fast, but luckily I don't think that I have any, quote, digestive problems. I've talked with some people in town who are experts in certain areas of that thing. And I also think, too, that I'm not eating as much food. I'm trying to not have these bigger portions. And I'm trying to stay away from, as much as I can, a lot of the refined carbohydrates. Yeah. So, and like I say, I like my super greens, and I think that that's something that's sort of keeping me at least in check for a while.
The refined carbohydrates are what a lot of people, gets them coming in through my door. And they market really well. Protein bars, gosh, there's so much fiber in there, and they've added omega-3s, and it's really good marketing.
I went to the State Street Mile yesterday, and there's a new, it's called Ivan Bar, new protein bar, I'll call it nutrition bar in Santa Barbara. And so I thought it was interesting. Read the ingredients, looked really good, but a little bit more on the carbohydrate than the protein. But it has a lot of nuts and all those things in it, so I think that the balance is reasonably good. Are you a fan of most of those types of things? I mean, maybe in a triathlon, but...
So every once in a while, I think real food is always better. Once you start eating real food, you're going to feel so much better. I talk to a lot of athletes, and the athletes that eat the real food perform a lot better. Yeah, and also the kind bars are the ones that have more real food in it. They have the nuts. There's not really any additives, any cornstarch or magnesium stearate, or any of the additives and fillers that add up over time.
Right. Yeah. I get that. So kind, and I know that they're in most of the stores now too.
Yeah.
So, so what's the best type of advice that you normally give to patients or to clients? You cut back on food. Change the food, try to eat more what we'll call real food. And in Santa Barbara, there really isn't that much of an excuse because there's farmers markets here everywhere. So
exactly, yeah, variety.
Right.
Variety. So a lot of the folks that come in to see me have these food allergies and food sensitivities, and they've narrowed their diet so much they don't know what to eat, and that's the reason why they're feeling so sick, is because they're eating the same thing over and over and over, and they're building certain gut bacteria up and others are decreasing. So they're having digestive issues, they're having immune issues, their detoxification is off because they don't have the nutrients to make the pathways flow. So just eating whole, real, clean food without any chemicals in it, and then having different foods, not eating the same thing over and over and over. Eating like 12.
Well, that's I think that's a really good piece of advice because as creatures of habit, I think that and I try to vary my breakfast. Lunch is I'm home at lunch now because I have a very old dog, but I try to vary the stuff, and then of course we vary our dinners every night. Coffee, are you a fan?
Yeah, I love coffee.
You love coffee. I didn't say how much you loved it, but I've read a lot of research about the beneficial effects of coffee, the antioxidants of coffee, low calories of coffee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a health coach out of Canada named Jason Christoff, and this guy is crucifying coffee. That the caffeine is like nicotine. It's terrible for your brain. It creates all these abnormalities if you drink a lot of coffee over time, which some people do. And he's just going off on coffee. He drink water. So
it depends on the individual, and a majority, I think 95% of Americans get most of their polyphenols from coffee. So they're not eating enough vegetables, so they're getting the polyphenols, which are the antioxidants, from coffee.
And wine.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, if they're drinking a lot of that. But you've got to drink so much wine in order to get the recommended amount that's even going to help you.
Yeah.
But the coffee has a lot of polyphenols in it, so it has a lot of different nutrients in it.
And your black coffee or what?
Yeah, so if you go to Starbucks and get the Frappuccino, that sort of
defeats the purpose.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can't. I think those things are. I don't.
It's all sugar. It's like the new fast food.
It is, and and there's more of it. I know that they're coming out with more of these fruity type drinks at Starbucks as well too. So, and do you tell your clientele stay away from a lot of those kind of things as much as possible?
Well,
You
it
know,
depends. I mean, you have to live.
I
So-
know, but
I have them, if they're having 5 cups a day, let's try to cut that down. Let's try 4 this week. Can you do that? How do you feel about doing 3 the next week? Try having some decaf versus caffeinated. You know, let's get you feeling better. Once you start feeling better and you start eating better, then you start to need less of that stimulant.
And one of the things that I know about athletes is they have to make changes based on, you know, performance, because I know that I've had some very sluggish performances, like, you know, I'm overweight, whatever. I know that there's a nutrition component. How much of the athletic groups in town do you work with? I know we've got cycling clubs here. I know we've got a track club up Montecito. I know that we've got other athletes who are doing the UCSB, the City College, the whatever. Do you sort of hitch your wagon to some of these teams and
God, I should more often. I am a member of the Santa Barbara Triathlon Club, so I'm past president there and have spoken at their meetings about nutrition. I think I'm actually doing one in November for that club. And there's also several running clubs that I've talked to, but I haven't really hit up the other clubs in town, which I should. I've been so busy with these other clients.
Well, which is good. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's great to be busy in Santa Barbara. And I had a woman on the show who did emotional eating, and she told me that, you know, this was the end of last year, that she was, you know, struggling to get clients, and she came on my show. She put a couple ads in the newspaper, and 5 months later, she's as busy as she can be. And I'm like, I'm so
Wow.
happy that. So maybe you'll have to hire someone after the show, or not.
Gosh.
But anyway, so we've got about a little over a minute to go here. Where can people get a hold of you? Do they come to your house? Do you guys meet at, you know, you meet somewhere else? You have an office in town, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I was working out of a chiropractic office, and then I have an office in my home, and I'm currently looking for another office. It's sort of in flux right now.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but if people called you, and we have your email on the screen right here, and if you want to give people a phone number, they can get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
because it's not on the screen, that's why.
805-451-7058.
Okay, 7058. And pretty much 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whenever we give you a call.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I call when
Sessions are about an hour or so, right?
Yeah, there's 2 sessions. One is an hour, and the next follow-up is 30 minutes.
Okay. So Chis Latham, Heal Well Nutrition, sports, aging, all kinds of good stuff. Hopefully we'll get you back on the show again, because I told you that 30 minutes would go fast. This is Eric Durack from Ed Health Fit, and thanks for watching.